Hello and welcome to another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm Jamie Johnson, the governmental and political correspondent, and it is that time of year in even-numbered years where we have elections coming up in April, and this will actually be our first of several. This is regarding the county board seat, and our guest is Cathy Leaf. Cathy, welcome to the show again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we've talked before, probably about this very position. You have been in politics a while, and in specifically local government. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start there with your qualification background, but let's start the interview with the county board. District number is?
District 4.
District 4.
So it covers the village of North Hudson and then a little sliver of the town of Hudson as well.
Okay. But not probably the sliver I live in, which is directly east of the city. So, okay. So, Cathy, tell us a little bit about your qualifications and your background.
Yeah, so I grew up in central Wisconsin in a very small town. I'm one of 5 children. My parents were teachers. So I come from a very rural and humble background. I ended up coming over in this direction of the state to go to school at UW-River Falls, where I graduated with a degree in ag education. And I've done marketing and PR my whole career. I've worked for Twin Cities agencies, and my husband and I started a business, which he's doing full-time now. And I am now working as a marketing manager for UW-River Falls. So I'm back with my alma mater. So it's kind of a full circle. When I'm not doing local government things and working, I like to garden, and I also like to really take advantage of the wonderful parks and trails that we have in the county.
Okay, great. So, and you actually live in the village of North Hudson?
Yep, I've lived in the village of North Hudson for 19 years. I've been in St. Croix County for 22.
Okay. So you got here just after I left the village of North Hudson because I lived there for about 10 years.
Pepperfest.
Yes, we've seen each other at Pepperfest, absolutely. So what do you think about your background that qualifies you? I mean, other than the fact that this is now you're going for your 3rd term on the county board. Right.
So I listen. I'm a listener. I do my homework. I have now in my running for my 3rd term, being in the office as well. The first term you're learning, right? You're learning the job, and by the 2nd time you're like, you really get it. You've been through a cycle with a budget. You kind of understand how things really go. So I really enjoy my work on the board. I'm on a bunch of committees. I'm vice chair of Public Protection and Judiciary Committee. And a subcommittee of that is Juvenile Justice and Child Welfare Subcommittee.
Wow. Very important.
Yes. So, and I also on the Health and Human Services Board. And so there's synergies between those committees that I really think I can add value to any policy that we might develop. I'm kind of it's a good liaison kind of experience between the two because they're obviously upstream and downstream in the judicial potential, right? When you have people that maybe needed help and then upstream tactics would be keeping them out of trouble and out of jail. So the more we can do that, the better. I'm on the local emergency management committee, and I'm also on the government center expansion building subcommittee. So
a lot of government work there, and I don't think people really realize how much the county is involved with between juvenile justice and child protection.
Right.
Those state dollars get applied, but it's really up to the counties and keeping those quality programs.
And we have, we're fortunate to have a court-appointed special advocate program that just started in the county, and we were able to reallocate some ARPA dollars to get them on good footing moving forward, and I'm really proud of that. We have over 100 kids on average in out-of-home placements in the county, so we really need this program to really help the judges really understand what's going on with the families.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's different than a guardian ad litem that does the real nuts and bolts of the legal process, but this is really someone who meets with the child weekly and really understands the dynamics, and they provide written reports to the judges, and they've said again and again that it really helps them understand the situations, and reunification is always the goal, but in order to do that, they really need to know what's going on in
Right.
the families.
Well, and you mentioned it's court-appointed special advocate. The acronym is CASA, and it is a program. We've had a whole program about it, so I won't get into huge detail. But it does need volunteers, and they don't have to be lawyers to volunteer for that program.
Right, exactly.
So why are you interested in continuing? It's always the question to ask the incumbent. You've been in this for 2 terms. Why would you want to? It's certainly not for the pay.
Exactly. I really enjoy the work, and I think now that I've been on the board for 2 terms, I'm really starting to help think about the policy side a little bit more. Some of the work that I'm doing in that subcommittee, the reason that I'm on the subcommittee is to help figure out what, if anything, the county can do from a policy standpoint to help with juveniles that are and child welfare. So that's the work I love. I love to do that, and I love to take complicated things and figure out how to solve for them as best we can. I think the local government is so important. It impacts your life more than anything else. It's not the sexy stuff like the presidential stuff, but it's the nuts and bolts that keep the county running and really help improve people's lives on a day-to-day basis. And I like doing that. As you can tell from my background with my family, we're helpers. In my family, we're teachers. We like to help people and make things better. And that's how I was raised, and I think the sense of service is definitely something that I've always had.
Okay. Well, looking back over particularly your last term here, what would you see as things that you might do differently if you had that opportunity?
Had the crystal ball?
Yes.
So we
or
had
the time machine to go back and do it
warp
over.
speed back, right? So we had a referendum on the ballot last spring for public safety. It was we hadn't done this before. It came through Public Protection and Judiciary, which is the committee that I'm vice chair of, and we were going for a number of different positions to really help us backfill. We're one of the fastest growing counties in the state, so with that we have increased demand for service, and that's really, that's going to keep continuing. So we had, as you know, with referendum questions, it's kind of like Mad Libs, right? There's certain things that we can fill in and do, and other things that are just mandated, right? Language. So we made it, I think, too broad and a little bit hard for people to understand. The difference between this year and that is that we have specified a little bit more in detail what the positions are that we're funding for. So I think if we had to do it differently, I would have advised for more of a definitive question that would have maybe helped us get where we needed to go.
Yeah, I think, there was a hope to fund like 6 to 8 positions, but there was ideas about how it might be allocated and so forth, but this has got a little more specificity to it.
It does, and it also, we were able to fund some law enforcement positions this year, and as you start to add those positions, you need to backfill with other pieces of the system. And two positions are for behavioral, mental health co-responders who go with law enforcement on scene and help. The goal is to get people help they need and not have them end up in jail, right? So they're getting, those are complicated calls. And our law enforcement are wonderful. They secure the scene, they stay as long as they need to stay. They can leave if they feel it's secure. And then the behavioral health specialist can help that person really work through what they need and get them the help that they need and their resources. That takes a lot of time. So, and it's all complicated. So 2 of these positions are now currently ARPA funded. So these would fund those positions permanently. So, and we've got a juvenile justice position, some corrections folks, and investigators with law enforcement in the DA's office. And they're all really needed.
And so I take it you were in support of putting this on the ballot and giving the voters the opportunity to decide.
Yes, I was.
Okay. But as far as any other areas where maybe you wish the county had taken different action?
I think that's the biggest one. We did talk briefly before the interview about the law enforcement positions that were funded. I wish that we would have thought of a different way to potentially fund them versus using sales tax, which was the way that they were funded. Typically, we do really well with sales tax revenue in this county, but it's a thing that can fluctuate. So it was a little bit uncomfortable for me to think about that as an option. I'm glad I fully support the positions. I think just the mechanism for funding I wish would have been different.
Okay. So now that's looking backwards. Let's now look forward. For the next 2 years, what would you put as the most important issues? Where do you want to see the county board focus attention?
We have a huge problem with mental health and addiction in this county, and the impacts that it has on our Health and Human Services Department, our judiciary, law enforcement, the whole system. Right now, if somebody is in crisis, they typically end up in an emergency detention, and that can typically end up meaning a trip to Oshkosh, to Winnebago, which is 4 hours from here.
And that means overtime for deputies.
It does, and it's a terrible experience for everyone involved to have the person that's in crisis have to be in the back of a squad car.
But from a
for 4
county
hours.
board level, how do you fix that if it requires state resources to set something up on our side
Correct.
of the state?
So there's a few options that I'd like
Okay.
us to consider doing. So we work through the Wisconsin Counties Association to advocate for changes to that. You have to advocate with your legislature to see if there's some things we can do. The Sacred Heart Hospital in Eau Claire is closing as well, and a couple of clinics and hospitals in Chippewa Valley. We used some of those facilities to help us with behavioral health. Now what do we do, right? We're in a state where all of us are vying for really tight resources, and how do we figure out it, collaborate with other counties, the state, federal, to figure out how we can work together and get this fixed, because it's not an easy thing to tackle, but we need to start tackling it somehow. Because right now, if we end up having placements in those other counties, it affects our budgets, and it's really hard to manage budgets when you're trying to figure out what the potential costs could be of 100 out-of-home placements for kids.
Right.
And some of them are complicated.
Well, it would save a ton of money then I didn't even know that Sacred Heart was going under, but Sacred Heart Hospital would be just 1 hour from here. That
Right.
would be
Right.
a much more affordable option
Right.
from that standpoint.
Right, and maybe there's something that can be done. I mean, there's obviously the care of the people that have already been patients at Sacred Heart. That is obviously paramount to figure out how to help serve those folks. But now that that's happened, what can we do as a region to hopefully to sort out the problem? Because it's affecting us all.
Okay, so mental health and addiction, that's one. Is there another area?
Yes, so we, affordable housing, and this is another tricky one too, right? But affordable housing for seniors and for families. We are the third fastest growing county in the state. But we have, and I understand, this happens to school enrollment too. If we don't have housing that is, family sustaining, people are going to choose another place to live, right? So it's important to me that we work through somehow, and I'm not sure what this is, but it's a conversation we should have about how we can make it more of an affordable place to be. Now, that's not to say, we have great net new construction. All of that has really helped us to have great financial standing. But at some point, we can't all be of a certain age, right? We have to diversify our population of taxpayers, from families to seniors and anything in between. So that's a challenge, and I think also economic development that helps us with those jobs to make sure that we can have good paying jobs for our folks to stay and want to stay here.
Right. Well, that's the issue we have, on our school board and in our school district is we're trying to recruit and retain quality teachers, but it's very tough to get them to be able to move to Hudson because of affordability issues on the housing.
And we run into that with our county employees as well, same situations.
Right. So, all right. Now, do you see any areas where the county maybe could reduce spending without reducing services?
So every year we set our budget priorities for the year when we start our budget. And this year the county administrator had an exercise for us to do at that meeting. And he had buckets on the table of things that we needed to fund. And he projected we'd have $1 million in new revenue to use to fund those needs, right?
Right.
Well, those chips go pretty fast when you start putting them into buckets, and all the needs are valid, in my opinion. So that goes fast, and then we realize that the jail food contract is up, and that's not an option. We need to do that.
So you can't just starve the
right. Mandated services are a thing.
Yes.
And that's the part of, I think, that people don't realize about county government is that the state will set policy and they don't always put the dollars behind it. So we have to make up for that here.
Right.
We need to provide the services, rightly so, but we have to figure out how to do it within our levy limits. And sometimes that's a challenge. So I think, and I mentioned those co-responders and some of the other services that the things that are out of our control with budgets that make it kind of hard to really plan. We can plan with trends a little bit, but some things we just can't, you have to be, we're very conservative. Our administrator is very good about making sure that we are conservative with our spending.
Right.
But at some point we have to, like this referendum, have to ask for additional levy and increase. I think our staff does a really good job of cross-training, and they do a really good job of evaluating programs that work and don't work, potentially when grants end, programs end sometimes, and then there's an evaluation of whether or not they worked well or not. A lot of our parks work is funded through grants and is contingent on grants. So I think we really do a good job of keeping that in mind every time we do our budget. The administrator works really well and the staff works so hard. He basically tells them, here's what we can maybe do this year. And then they get creative. And, creativity is fair to a point, but at some point we obviously need to make sure that we're adequately serving the needs of our constituents.
What's the county going to do with all the money they're saving of not plowing roads?
What happens is that gets used for road construction. So our highway commissioner is very excited about the fact that we've had a very good winter.
Yes. Well, it's road maintenance,
Yep.
right? Mm-hmm. And it's legit to spend it on those things. I know some townships struggle with, offering road improvements, but then, it means increased taxes.
And last year was miserable for
Yeah.
snow. And then we had so many people that were running into plows too. We had many, many incidents of people running into plows.
Well, let's cross our fingers.
So hopefully
Get
now,
through this year.
yes, I think we will, as far as we are in the year.
All right. I guess we just got a minute or two here, but what would you see as any other issues that you think the county board, because again, it comes down to priorities, and you're on some very important committees. There's mandated functions that the county has to serve, and is there things that you might reprioritize, or anything that over the last 2 to 4 years that you've been on the county board you feel like hasn't really gotten its full due?
I think the mental health and upstream tactics, I think we can do. I think we're doing a lot of work with the downstream judiciary side. I think any
Working on prevention rather than...
correct. When I say upstream, I should explain it. Yes, that means exactly the prevention side, the keeping people sober, keeping people, helping them do that, helping them recover and get on their feet.
Yeah, the idea that we're going to send them to drug court, after the offenses have been committed and after the harms have been invoked, it's too late then.
It is too late.
And so we really need to be proactive.
And we can't, putting them in jail, the jail is not a mental health facility, so it's not fair to anyone involved there either. So I think the more we can do to function in that way, and our HHS department does a great job, but there always is a need.
Okay.
And I think some of the initiatives that they're doing are really helping. I think there's a Recovering Together Cafe that's a new thing for people that are on their journey in recovery, and there's free childcare, and so they're doing a lot of things. And there'll be a forum coming up this spring on mental health and especially youth. So I think the more of that we can do, the better off we'll be in the long term. The problem is that some of those things take time.
Sure. Well, speaking of forums, what about the candidate forum? I know, in county local government, it's more of a truncated election season.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you'll have a primary. I don't think there was this year for a county board. But even so, you're talking about declaration of candidacy in late December, and then 90 to 100 days later, you got the election. So is there forums coming up? How can voters learn more about your candidacy, what you've done in office? And
Yep. So I have a website, Leaf 4 St. Croix, and it's the number 4.
Okay, Leaf number 4, and then St. Croix, is that with a period?
Yep.
Okay.
And then no period, but stcroix.com. So
Okay.
no period after the T in St. Croix.
Okay.
And then I will be out knocking doors. It's the best way to get to, with
Sure.
the weather being so wonderful. I've done campaigns when
Well,
it's been
with two
miserable.
with 2 village board terms and 2 county board terms representing the same area, I imagine your neighbors tend to know who
Yeah,
you are, but
yeah.
there's always people moving
There's
in.
always people moving in, and then with the town of Hudson, that the district's got a little reconfigured. So some of people there might not know me. There will be a League of Women Voters event on March 7th as
Okay,
well.
March 7th.
So that would be another time to meet and greet candidates as well. But
That's a Thursday night,
Yep,
so a
yep.
week from this coming Thursday.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
And so Cathy, and it's Leaf for St. Croix.
Yep,
If
.com.
people Google that .com, they'll be able to learn more.
they'll find me.
And do you have a Facebook page, or is there?
Nope, my
no,
website.
Just the website. Got it. Very good. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much to you and the River Channel. As I've said many times in many venues, we're in a media void in Western Wisconsin for a
Right.
lot of things. So this is so important.
And this is why we've been doing it for 18 years. So
We appreciate it.
very good. Well, again, thanks for being our guest. And I want to thank our viewers for watching another segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. And as we say at all of these candidate interviews, please, folks, do your research, read up, but most importantly, get out there and vote on April 2nd. And again, keep watching.